Welcome everybody back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, and the 2024-2025 NFL season is officially over now that we know that the ultimate champions, the last team remaining, was the Philadelphia Eagles that culminated all yesterday in a dominating 40-22 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Very surprising result considering all the talk that we made and had on this show. But with all that being said, we're going to go over yesterday's game, all of our takeaways from both sides of the game with the Eagles and also the Chiefs side of things as well. But that's not everything. Obviously, there's a lot more news over the weekend with some news on Aaron Rodgers and his future. Same thing with Deebo Samuel and his future. We're going to get to all of it on today's show, so make sure to stick around. And before we get started, a quick reminder to you guys, if you have any questions, comments, or any opinions you'd like to share during the show, please don't hesitate to do so. Your input and insight is always very much appreciated, and we always thrive on whether or not you guys give us that feedback and just a different perspective on whatever we're talking about. So if you want to make your voice heard and you want to get involved with the show, there's an easy way to do that just by using our Super Chat feature. You can use the Super Chat feature just by clicking the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that I can see your message, I'll read it out loud, it'll feature on the show, and that way, get your guys' thoughts, feelings on anything that we're talking about throughout the duration of these live shows. So, again, go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as conversational as possible. We always thrive on hearing your guys' insights. We always love the feedback. So go ahead and hit the Super Chat button and just let us know what's on your mind when we're doing these live shows. So with that now out of the way, we can get to the elephant in the room and start talking about the Super Bowl last night, right? First, on the good news for the Eagles, of course, right? We'll start talking about them. And an apology to the Eagles first, because I really thought the Chiefs were going to win this game. I thought that, one of the biggest points I made was that I wasn't sure whether or not the Eagles were going to play mistake-free football all night. I just didn't know if they had that within them, right? I didn't know if they were capable of that. I knew that the Chiefs were going to come in and try and stop Saquon, and I thought that could, distort a couple things. But I underestimated their offensive line, which I think just showed everybody, even though they won't get the praise, right? It'll all go to, the likes of Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, very much deserved. Devontae Smith, big play, A.J. Brown, getting involved, and all those players before they start talking about the offensive line. But I wanted to come on here, and highlight their performance because they're a very weird position where as long as we're not talking about them, they're doing a phenomenal job. And that's exactly how they carried out their business in this game. But it wasn't only just them, but the defensive line also. And just the whole Eagles team dominated the Chiefs 40-22 to win their second Super Bowl last night and to stop history and stop the Chiefs from a historical three-peat. So, more on the score. This game, even though I didn't want to admit it, was almost pretty much over at halftime, I would say. I was really not feeling great about it. I was really trying to be optimistic, but really, once the third quarter hit, it was more of the same from the first half. It got to 34-0 until there was 30 seconds left in the third quarter when the Chiefs finally scored. But up until that point, all their offensive drives consisted of 6 punts, 1 turnover on downs, and 2 interceptions leading up to their first score of the game. And all because the Eagles defense really reminded you of some games like Denver getting beat up by the Seattle Seahawks and the Legion of Boom. In 2021, the Chiefs are familiar with this, getting beat up by that Tampa Bay defense and having Patrick Mahomes look a lot like he did last night. And yeah, it was unbelievable because I thought the Chiefs would never find themselves in a position like that. But we saw what happened last night, and their shortcomings at offensive line, I guess, came back to bite them in the worst possible moment. Because Joe Thuney, although he's been playing great at left tackle and was doing a very admirable job to switch over. It might not seem like a lot, but it's pretty different just being out there by yourself. He kind of got exposed a little bit last night. I thought Josh Sweat really gave him the business all night long. Caliendo, who came in to replace Joe Thuney at that left guard spot, really wasn't holding up great against guys like Milton Williams, Jordan Davis. That whole left side was really struggling the entire night. It was insane to watch, and it led to the Chiefs being only 3 of 11 on third down. Patrick Mahomes was only sacked 6 times, which was pretty hard to believe because it felt like he was sacked 10 times, considering how much he was running around and getting beat up. And the 3 turnovers were huge, right? That was one thing that I also said that was a big part of the Eagles' game plan, obviously, right? In the game against the Commanders, the Rams, and the Packers, obviously. So I thought that was all great, but playing against the Chiefs and their experience and their pedigree at being in these big games, I didn't think they were going to give them that many opportunities. But the Eagles created their own opportunities, right? They forced them into detrimental spots where, you had Patrick making some questionable decisions, getting flustered, and their defense really dictated the pace of the game for the Chiefs, right? They were getting into this game as the leading team in 10 plus drives all season, this being the Chiefs. So they weren't able to play at that slow, methodical game manager sort of drive, right? The Eagles sped them up, flustered them, rattled them all night long, and you could tell by like halftime a little bit, and in that third quarter, right? Like the body language, the expressions on their faces, they didn't know what hit them. They didn't know what hit them, and they didn't really know what to do about it. So it was very offsetting to see the Chiefs rattled that much. But it's all the more credit to the Eagles for playing a huge game. And it was, I mentioned those 2 turnovers, right? Both of them, the one Patrick one was pretty bad, but the other one, Josh Sweat just picks Thuney up and dumps him into the lap of Patrick, and he creates a turnover. Credit to Zach Bond for getting that interception. Of course, it was going to be Zach Bond to get that. The way the season has been going for him and all the plays he's made, right? He's been at the center of everything. So, of course, he was going to make that catch, but I think that was a perfect example of just the offensive line, like just getting in the way of everything, it felt like, right? You never got anything going for them, and, that was a great example of the Eagles' defense dominating once again. We mentioned the O-line, and, the offense might not get highlighted too much. I think they only scored 3 offensive touchdowns. It might have just been the tush push at the start, the Smitty one, and the A.J. Brown one. And I think that was all of it. They scored 3 touchdowns on offense, and that's kind of been their MO, right? And it was something that people probably didn't think that could be sustainable up until this point. But much like Nick Sirianni has said, much like Jalen Hurts has said all season long, right? That's their style, and they don't really care what other people say about it. It's been working for them, and they proved it in front of everybody watching last night as well. So I found myself thinking at one point, like this game's 34-0, and the Chiefs came into this game executing their game plan, right? The game plan was to stop Saquon, and they did that. Saquon really didn't do that much all game. He was kind of efficient, but they stopped them for the most part, right? And it really didn't do much because they were still up 34 points. So I was thinking, like, could you imagine if Saquon had, like, a typical 100-yard, 2-touchdown game, what the score would be like right now? It's insane, but the common theme for the Eagles all season long, even really back to the loss of the Buccaneers and how they went into their bye week after that and got everything right. From that point on, they've been about this mindset that we're going to do what we're comfortable with. We're going to play to our strengths, and it doesn't really matter if people think it's entertaining, if it's the way to do it. It works for us. We're going to go through this defense. We're going to run the ball. And again, if people start doubting it, we'll show them here or there, like the Steelers game, like last night, right? And also the Commanders game. If people have some sort of doubts, we're going to sprinkle in some moments like, oh, you might doubt us, but we can have a a great play over the top to A.J. Brown, a great back shoulder throw to A.J. Brown as well, a nice deep ball thrown to Devontae Smith, and just show everybody again, like, just because we don't do it doesn't mean that we can't do it. And I think that was another great example last night. It was an opportunity for them to throw the ball, and apart from that interception Hurts threw, everything was on the money from him. I mean, he had a great pocket, right? That the Chiefs really didn't do much, but to his credit, to this offense's credit, and to highlight Kellen Moore also, who has done a phenomenal job as their offensive coordinator, everything worked out perfectly for the Eagles. And although the last thing I'll say on offense, while it might have been sporadic at times, you know, the run game or maybe it was the passing game, very, very rarely, one thing that never wavered was this defense. And I thought yesterday showed me that although there might be some questions about Hurts, there might be some questions about this run game and how the Chiefs were going to try and stop them at all costs, what never was questioned and what never was sped up or altered at all was the way they played defense. And I thought that was highlighted last night especially. So congratulations to the Eagles. Very well deserved. The best team, best playing team all season, best built team all season. Credit to their front office as well. But now that was all the good stuff. That was all the positives from the Eagles side of things. Now we got to talk about the Chiefs a little bit, right? Because they also have a pretty big role in this story. So we're going to go into a quick break, and when we return, talk about the Chiefs, the uncharacteristic turnovers, and the lack of run game in last night's game was pretty confusing. So we're going to discuss it when we return right after this.